Hello. Today we're going to do a Java web application. So basically, it's a full stack application where there's a front end and a back end. And the front end that we are going to use is the Thymeleaf itself. So these are the different dependencies that we should be adding on our project: the web, Thymeleaf, Lombok, GPA, and then we're just going to use H2 database. The dev tool we just added here for development, such that later we will be able to reload the application without restarting. Right, so I've already started working with some of the classes on the application itself. So we have the controller, the mapper, the model, the repository, and the service. So let's look at it one by one. So you have the controller. In the controller itself, if you notice, we're using at controller instead of REST controller, as this is a Java web application, and we're going to not have a separate UI that accepts JSON. Then we have the mapper itself. The mapper allow us to convert one object to the other. I'm going to explain it later. Then we have the model, the DTO. This is our entries for our DB, and then of course we have a separate registration entity where the property is the same with our DTO. Then we have the repository, which extends GPA, and on the service we have the interface which allow us to get all registration, add registration, and remove a registration, and then we need to implement it here later. So we'll start with going on the service itself, as we already have a registration. So with registration, we're going to return all record. So list of course, since this is from DB, it will be registrations, and then registrations equals to, we need to define here our AutoWire, our repository. ECS is pass it to the constructor itself. So we have here private final registration repository, then we'll just name it repository, and then either we can use this one, or we could actually, since we already added Lombok, we could add the all args constructor. Okay, so by default it will create this repository inside the constructor itself. Then we're going we will be able to use it already in our application. Say find all. Okay, so then the registration we need to convert into a guess. So we can do a loop here such that we can actually iterate the registration and convert it into guess, as the repository returns a registration entity, but we are going to return guess. So the easiest way to do this is using the stream itself, and then map the value from registration into guess. So we could use the registration mapper. Okay, so we need to also define here the registration mapper, and then let's name it mapper, and then from mapper here you can use the method to DTO, and then of course collect collectors to list. Right, then of course this one becomes a guess. Okay, so instead of assigning it to a variable and return the variable, we could just directly return it. Right, on the add registration, so this is simple. We just need to use the repository.save, but then our repository requires a registration entity, but we have a guess, a parameter, so we could just convert this one first to registration. So you can do something like this, but we'll try this one first. Sorry, then we do something like registration, set name, then the guest dot get name, then we save the registration. Okay, then of course we can return the registration get ID, which is a long, so we can convert it into a string. Then removing, since we have an ID, so we could say repository.delete by ID, delete by ID, and then ID. Okay, of course, delete by ID, return void. So let's just say we'll just return always 1. Okay, because we're going to delete only one record. Okay, so we're done with the service layer. Then we'll go to our controller. On our controller, we'll use the get mapping to public string, add get registrations. Okay, now take note, in Spring MVC, using Thymeleaf, the view interceptor is already configured for you. So with this, you can just return a string, which is the name of the HTML, which is in this case we're returning index, which is the name of our template here. Okay, so maybe we could try this out first so that we'll know if this thing is working. So I'll just compile it first. Okay, and then run the main. Take note, currently we have this HTML with this title, and then we have an input text and a button. Later we'll finish this up for us to be able to accept entries. Okay, so let's try. Okay, so we have this index HTML loaded, since on our controller we're saying that get mapping returns index. So what will happen, since we're using Thymeleaf here, so it will try to look for the HTML file inside the template HTML. So let's try another one, so that will be able to see the behavior. Say contact info, and then from here get mapping to the contact. Okay, and then you say return contact. So what will happen is when you do /contact, it will look for the contact HTML file. In this case, it's not yet here, so let's try to create that one. Name it contact info. Then say h1 contact information. Okay. Then on our index, let's create a just a sample link above dev, and then from here we'll say contact there. Sure. Okay, so let's test this one. So if I'm going to refresh the page again, you'll notice that there's a contact link here, and if I click contact, it goes into the contact page itself. So that's how this controller works with the template HTML itself. So it needs the method should return a string and needs the name of the HTML itself as the return value. Okay. So let's start designing our form. So what will happen is we have a text field, and then when we click register, it will go to our controller and save it to our H2 database. So before you could use the Thymeleaf itself, we need to change this HTML tag to include the Thymeleaf namespace. So HTTP Thymeleaf .org. Then below, let me verify first. Okay, that's correct. Then here, let's put this one inside the form. So the action, then using Thymeleaf, I'm going to use the Thymeleaf action, and then the syntax is this one, the ampersand, curly braces, and then the endpoint. So let's use register. The method is post, and then let's attach an object to it, which in this case will be, say, guess. Okay, and should be here. All right. Okay. So from here, let's go to a controller and define the, let's remove this one. I've also removed it from our index.html. The link itself is not there anymore. But we'll be creating the post mapping with the endpoint register. So register, okay. And for us to be able to retrieve the value, we're going to use the annotation model attribute, okay, from the Spring framework itself. So this is guess. So guess, the DTO is named guess. Okay. So we have now the guess DTO, and then we're going to save it. So we already created earlier the registration service where add registration, we're passing in the guess. So from here, we just need to auto wire the registration service, then the service. Okay. So ECS is use the Lombok all args constructor, and then we'll be able to use the constructor itself already. So service dot add registration guess. Okay, so we can directly shouldn't be returning that one. We should return back. We should redirect back to the index page. Okay, so that's it. How to receive the attribute, I mean the properties which is passed from our HTML to the controller. But then based on our declaration here, we this form has an attached object which is guess, and this guess object should be loaded on the index itself. So we could put here model as parameter, import class. This is from the framework model, add attribute which is named guess, and then we wanted to create a guess instance. Okay, so let's try this one. Okay, so let's test this out. So I just need to refresh the page. Okay, so we actually have an error, URL. So let's check how do we resolve this error. So what does it say? Use to object selection is guess, which is not valid. Oh, sorry. This should have been guess this one. Right, so let's rerun this one. Okay, so it's up now. So let's refresh. Okay, so let's start entering values. Say Tony start, then click register. Okay, all right. What happened is, if you look at the console, it's inserted a record, but of course we need to still do something for us to be able to see it on the UI. But on the controller itself, what happened is, when we call this register endpoint, it saved the record and then redirect to the index page, which is here. So and then of course the guest attribute here, we again created an instance of the new guest, so that's why it became blank again. So what we can do is, let's shall we say, display the entries that we have saved here, so that will just show the data that we have saved. So table, and then let's use the tr, and then th equals to guess, and then of course the guess with the s. So we're going to define that later. Then from here we use the td with the text, which is the guest name. Right, I guess that's the only thing that we need to do. But since we come here and then we need to actually query all the record and add up again to the model attribute. So model.add attribute, and then as we define, it's called guess, based from here. Guess, from here we just iterate all the guest name. Okay, and then since we have the service already, get all registrations. Okay, so let's rerun, then we'll see. Of course, the data will be gone by then, since we're using in-memory database, but we could just retest it. Okay, so it's running, so let's test it out now. So I'll just refresh this page, and then type in, say, Tony Start. Right, so take note, if you notice, we're able to see the entry that we just put in. So say Jane Doe again. Okay, so 2, say Jack Sparrow. Okay, so what happened in here, so the controller itself, so after registration we redirect to the base endpoint, which is actually this one. So it comes back here, and then it reinitialize the guest, and then query all the record that we have seen from here. Okay, all right, so let's continue. So let's create another method here, which is delete mapping. So again, delete registration, we'll just name it delete, and then this one requires an ID. Okay, so delete. So let's put here a path variable, which is an ID. and this one is long. And then of course service delete. Oh, we have removed, pass in the, and then redirect back to the index page. So on delete here, let's create a form here. Do the section here for deletion, so we could just actually create a button here or something, but let's just do another way, which is in this case, let's create another TD, then form action, then TH action equals to, we'll do something like this. Okay, and then we'll add the guest ID. Then this method is post, and then here we have a button. Button type submit, and then it should be say the X, since we don't have any image, or let's just use the letter X. But here we need to pass, this is hidden, name underscore method. So what will happen here is when we do a post, when we click this one, we do a post and then convert it into a delete, such that on the controller it will call this method. So in Spring Boot, in order for this to work, we need to define the Spring MVC hidden method filter enabled true. Okay, so let's rerun this one now. Okay, so let's test it. Let's refresh first to get the latest changes. So add again. If you notice, we have now the button that we defined based from here, and then when we click it, it will actually use the delete value for the method itself. Then let's add another one, Jack Sparrow, and then click delete Tony Stark. Okay, so the delete functionality worked. But then we have an issue here. Say we don't put any value, and then we click register. So it actually added value which is has a blank name. So we can have validation such that when we click register, it actually check if the value is if it has value. So how do we do that? So let's go back to the controller, and then from the register itself here, let's use the binding result and result. So we can check from here if a result has errors. So if it has errors, what do we do? So we could display the error message itself, saying let's return back to the let's redirect, or I'll explain later while we're not going to use redirect here, but directly call the uh, index property. Okay, so from here on the index HTML page itself, we could define something like let's put it here somewhere above our text. Say a span th if, and then we could, oh sorry, if, and then the fields, there's a has errors, and then the variable or the property that has error, which is a name, and then we could put here, say name is required. So this one will only be triggered if we have an error on the name property itself. So on the DTO, which is guess, so let's put a validation here which says not empty. Okay, the name should not be empty. Okay, so let's restart. Okay, Tony Stark added, Jack Sparrow added, but then if we don't put anything, we are expecting that the error message appear. Okay, so name is required because the formatting is not good. But then if you notice, the entries here are gone. Of course, since in this case we just directed to the index page, not the get registration page itself, which is if we do a redirect, the exception won't appear. So let's try that one. Say let's do this redirect. Okay, take note when we had this exception, the name is required appeared. So let's just also format it a little bit by putting here, say BR. Okay, so let's restart. Okay, so let's test this out using redirect if the error message still appears. So let's refresh the page. And then let's enter this one. And then if we register without value, we are expecting that the message here appear as what we have tested earlier. But then if I click it, nothing appears. So this is the issue of redirect. But there's a redirect attribute that we could use. But for to make it simpler, we'll just go directly to the index page and then add this one. Since we already added the model parameter here, so let's just requery the entries or the guess itself. Okay, so let's test this out. Sorry, I just need to refresh the page again. Tony Stark register, and then let's register without value. We're expecting that the error message appear. Okay, so name is required. Then if we put in another entry, okay, it disappeared. Okay, then we can also delete. All right, so everything is working on a Spring MVC with front end and back end.